Hey guys, welcome to Simproved, Fry speaking here, and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. Today we are going to build a base game house, so basically you can build this without any packs, and I will also use this video to explain a little bit about how I create houses and how the whole, I think, process is going to be about it. But before we do and jump into the build mode, this is also a collaboration with Sweeney. She has a Sims YouTube channel as well, and she was so kind to furnish this house. So this will be the second part, and this part will only talk about how to build houses and maybe give you some tips in relation what you might think of or what you might do if you are building a house in The Sims 4 from scratch. So yeah, please check out Sweeney's channel. I will link to her video and of course her channel in the video description down below, so you can check it out how this all turned out fully furnished. And yeah, I really hope that you are going to like this. So building in The Sims 4 is basically a bit confusing maybe at first. If you are a simmer from other base games, and if you already know Sims 2, 1 or 3, then you might already know that the actually build mode is a little bit easier now, since you can drag and drop on rooms and on walls, and you also can copy whole rooms and decorations over to one another, which makes it a little bit more easier now. So this is the first thing that is a thing that you can use to your advantage. So if you are building in blocks, which is quite easy, just put on one little block and then you might add smaller little blocks to it. If you don't like an annex or something, you can make it smaller by just dragging and dropping it, or just decreasing like the wall size and everything. So this is something that I usually always experiment with when I'm building. This house in particular was something that I totally had only in my mind. There is no real house that looks like it. Maybe there is, but I was just focused on that I wanted to build something that looks a little bit more Victorian, very American, and also fits into the Willow Creek worlds that we get if you have the base game, of course. And yeah, I just wanted to create something that could fit into this world, could fit as many Sims that you might have for a whole family, and just to start your gameplay in general, in my opinion. So I thought that it would be nice, and of course use some things that are always a bit easier, which is, for example, a huge veranda all around the house. Usually I see huge boxes that don't have any roofing on the second or third level, only on top of the house, like as a boxy roof, in my opinion. You can try to deconstruct a little bit of these houses, and by just putting in one veranda or just one porch that also has a roof on it. You can do this by just doing another huge box, or like little box, depends on how big you want your porch or veranda to be, and then just using spandrels for the walls, so it is already an open space. This is something that I do usually. I see a lot of other sim builders do it differently, but in my opinion this is way much faster. So usually I have like the whole structure of the house that contains the roof, which is only like a really boring facade maybe. And then I just put like one big box all around, or maybe do a little freaky shape, or like what I did here with some diagonal roofs or like diagonal walls here in particular, and then just use the spandrel tool and click on the walls to make it an open space. And then you already have a little plate, I always call them plates, but a roof on it, and you can put these diagonal roofs or gabled roofs all around it just to make it look a little bit better. So in my opinion, the first tip I would go for is to use different roofs and of course different roof heights. So usually you have maybe one on the first level and the second level, all that kind of stuff. If you only have a one level house, then it could also mean that it could look really interesting if you use different kinds of roofs maybe. If it's a modern house, usually lots of people just go with a boxy look by not putting in any other roof than just, you know, the plate that is on top of it. But you can use lots of trims and maybe even do a little really tiny diagonal roofs to make it look as if there are maybe solar panels on it. Or you can also go in and maybe change the roof and drag it more outside of the house to have like an overhanging roof plate over the house, for example, which could also look really cool if you then use a foundation to maybe balance it off. So the foundation is bigger than the actual house and the roof also is, so you kind of have a little roofed space around the house or in front of the house. That could also work. The other tip that I could give you is to not be as intimidated. Like, for example, if I show some people these kinds of houses, they don't know how I do them. But here you can already see that I usually put on lots of boxes. I try to experiment a lot with different roofs. So if I still see a box that has like only the roof plate on it, and I know I want to have like a gabled roof or something else on it, I just drag and pull and see if it looks a little bit more structured. So in my opinion, of course, this is maybe the advanced level, but if you just put a box and then another box on it, and so on, you can already do the facade pretty quickly and make it look really good. In my opinion, lots of people also build from the inside to the outside, which is an actual form how you do this as an architect, of course. I myself have to say that I only do this in The Sims 4 from the outside to the inside. So I only do the exterior first every time. And then when I do the sectioning of the rooms, I kind of figure out how many bedrooms and everything could fit in there. So don't be discouraged if you think that your houses look a little bit weird since you are building from the inside, like only doing the rooms and then trying to put a roof on it. That could also work, but you can use the drag and drop tool or just dragging the rooms a little bit to create some more interesting or more coherent looking blocks that are also then easier to do the roofs on. So this is maybe a tip for me. I also have to say that I currently like to stream on Twitch TV, so if you are into that, I usually build there and talk to you guys. We already had so many really lovely people there, and if you are interested in that, you can follow me on Twitch TV and see me live building a Sims 4 house, and you can chat with me and I can probably try to answer all of your questions. It's kinda maybe sometimes overwhelming, these kinds of speed builds, which I know, of course. It's a different thing to build in The Sims 4 than, of course, planning something that is in real life. So we have lots and lots of stuff that in real life an architect would have to look out for, which is static. It's of course materials. Since in The Sims 4 materials is not a thing, all walls have the same thickness. You can just change the materials by just putting another texture on it, which is like a wallpaper maybe, or different kind of objects to make it look as if it's like a wooden structure or a brick or even concrete structure. So these kinds of things are all stuff that is in The Sims not as important, for example, and you can easily change the look of a house by just putting other windows on there and using another roof, which is something that maybe we are going to do a little tutorial on. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that even with base game you can build really beautiful houses. I really wanted it to look really basic in my opinion, so it's just white and has these blue windows. By the way, I used lots of different windows from the base game. This is another tip. I see this in some of the first builds of some people that they use the same windows all the time. This could work in really modern builds that kind of look like little bungalows or something. But in my opinion, even modern houses have different kind of windows, different window heights. You can go with different colors here, of course. Since this is Victorian, I use some with shutters, some don't have any shutters, for example, those that are in the roofs, on the sides of the roofs, because I just thought maybe this is just too much. I tried to come up with at least 2 or 3 different kinds of windows that I'm going to use on the house, and once I found these 3 windows, I use them quite a lot and try to, you know, put them there where it makes kind of sense in my opinion. Kind of also to balance out maybe if you have a really big structure with huge windows, maybe the next one that is a really small, tiny structure, you need a smaller window just to give this structure a little bit more scale to the others that is next to it. So These kinds of things is all by just experimenting, seeing if I really like it, if I think it looks balanced in my opinion and realistic, kind of like a house could look like maybe in real life, of course, and I just go for it. Also, I see lots of people who maybe have like just a pretty undecorated house and they just add lots of stuff in during the gameplay, which is something that I highly encourage, of course, to do. In my opinion, just by the Sims that collect these things in gameplay, or maybe you got more money because your Sim now got a promotion in their job, or they, I don't know, sold a really nice painting. You can use this kind of thing to also surprise your Sims maybe with new objects for your gameplay. And then just adding maybe a new room in to use these objects, for example, a new office or a gym or spa. This is something that I really like, and usually at the end of your gameplay, or maybe when your legacy is dead or your Sim is dead, you really have like a really nice house at the end that has also a really cool story that kind of connects you to the whole house, which is something that I really like about The Sims 4, and which is something that made myself really like the build mode in The Sims 4, because you get more of a story than any interior designer or an architect ever has with a house, which is amazing, and I really like this about The Sims 4, of course. So you could already see me placing the landscaping. So usually there are 3 big things that I like to do in landscaping. The first thing is terrain paint. I usually, before I put any plants in there, by the way, I only do the landscaping after I've done the whole facade and exterior of the house. Then I use the terrain paint, which is basically like a color spray tool that you can use on the floor here on the grass and change the grass texture maybe to dirt or to stone, which is something that I do maybe in these Victorian houses all around the house. Maybe also in more organical shapes, so not really tidy. It can look a little bit messy, and you can always erase them. It's basically like a little drawing tool that you can use here in The Sims 4, and which gives me the opportunity to see where I will put some flowers and where there won't go any greenery. For example, on the dirt roads, I always put the green and the flowers. And then usually there where I use the stone or pavement spray tool, this is maybe a little corner where I will place some objects for your Sims to sit on or to eat, or maybe it's going to be lounge chairs outside. Maybe it's also a pathway to another house on the slot or something. Yeah, this is something that is really cool for you to already map out how the garden will look like. You can also do this, of course, by just using floors, which are also rectangular or diagonal, so you don't have these really organic forms. So the second step is to place in all the flowers and different kinds of greenery that you want to use in a house. I usually also, like the windows, go for maybe, in this case, 3 to 4 or 5 flowers and bushes, and maybe 3, depending of course on how big the lot is, different trees that kind of look the same. I always orientate myself with the greenery, what is all around it. So for example, if you are in a beachy world, you might only use, of course, tropical plants or palm trees. And if you are building in a more wooden forest or something, of course, high pine trees or something would be more suiting. And then the whole house kind of blends into your world. Now, if you use the spray tool and have these really organic, swung, curved shapes, I really like to put lots of little stones all around it, which you could already see here in the video. And just to have like a trimming of a fence kind of thing all around the house, all around the greenery, which is really nice looking. It's kind of a very repetitive thing to do. They also cost a lot of money, so if you don't like to cheat for your house, then this might not be the option for you, although there is like one set of stones that is kinda, I would say, cheap. So maybe if you have a really small house or small lot, then this could be an option for you. Otherwise, you could still use the fence tool, but fences, like floors and walls, only can go straight or diagonal, and therefore it's really hard to do these organic shapes, in my opinion, for The Sims 4. It's also kind of not really easy to build on a diagonal in general, so if you have a diagonal box as your starting house tool, There are some kinds of things that won't work really well. For example, stairs can only go to a straight line, so there are no diagonal stairs. Also, roofing in the diagonal is really hard in The Sims 4. It's kind of really tricky and fiddly a little bit, so I would only recommend you building on the diagonal if you only have to. But so far, please, if you aren't really experienced in The Sims 4 build mode, I would recommend you to stay away maybe from diagonals in general in your house and just go with really straight lines and kind of see if it's all balanced and everything. So yeah, this is basically how I built a house, and these kinds of things that I look for when I am building a house. It's lots of experimenting, especially when I'm not trying to rebuild something that exists in real life, which is always really hard to do in The Sims 4, of course. So yeah, this is the base game house. You can watch the second part of the furnishing of this house on Sweeney's channel, so please go there and check it out. I will link to it in the info box and of course in the video description down below if you're interested in that. And yeah, I really hope that this video gave you some insights on how I build houses in The Sims 4, and maybe it also inspires you for your own gameplay and your own build mode in The Sims 4. And yeah, that's basically it. I really want to thank you for watching. Please enjoy the video tour that's coming up now, and I will see you soon. Bye bye!